Hey, what's up guys, it's Mike with Hope for Reptiles, and today we're going to my local orchid show, so why don't you guys sit back, relax, and let's get this show on the road. Mom, let's go!
No!
Fine, we don't need her. It's fine. It's fine. We'll have fun. The most important part about going to an orchid show is having money first, so I need to go to the bank, pick up some cash, and then head over to the orchid show. You guys don't really need to come to the bank with me, so we'll catch you at the orchid show. I went to the bank, I got cash, and now we're here. Right now I'm just going to show you guys some of the favorite orchids that were at the show. It's not going to be an entire walkthrough because I feel like that would be a little bit boring for everyone, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful orchids. And that does it for the orchid show part of this tour. I hope you guys enjoyed the various different orchids that are offered here. Now we can move on to buying some stuff. The sale room at the orchid show is always a little bit of a disaster, but you know what? There's so many people and so many hundreds of orchids that it's worth the struggle of getting to the vendors themselves and finding the orchids that you're looking for, because holy smokes is there a lot to choose from. Sometimes you do have to be a little bit pushy to get what you want, but you know what? The orchids that you walk out with are well worth the hassle and jam-packedness of the orchid show sale floor. And that's a wrap on the orchid show. It was pretty good. I definitely have some tips for you guys to save some money whilst at an orchid show, because it's not cheap. Everything's very expensive. I'll share these tips later in the video. Right now I got to take my loot and get out of here. And this is the damage that was done at the orchid show. One bag, several plants. So as you can see here, I did not get a ton at the orchid show. There's a reason for that. I will go into it after I'm done getting these all into their temporary, much more humid setup. But with that being said, why don't we just go through and I'll show you some of the ones that I have. So this is from Paramount Orchids, as you can see. This is a bulbophyllum ambrosia. It's a miniature plant, as you can see. I did not see the flowers on this one. I'm hoping that there might be time for it to still flower this year, which would be great. But the plant itself looks good. As you can see, I paid 26 bucks for it. So none of these orchids are cheap by any stretch of the imagination, unfortunately. But they are beautiful plants. This next one is another bulbophyllum. It is a bulbophyllum retiosuculum. I'm going to butcher that, but hopefully I'll get it at some point. This one costed $28, as you can see there. And it is a very small plant with some really small little blooms, but it looked really, really cool. These are going to be going in some new dart frog setups that I'm going to build. I got one last one from the Paramount Orchids booth. This is a Masdevallia floribunda. It's a intermediate grower, so hopefully it'll do okay in my actual tanks. The dart frog tanks, it's kind of questionable whether it will or not. I'm just going to set it down so I can get a decent shot of the flowers for you guys. There we go. You guys can see it there. It's a beautiful little flower, and I'm hoping that it'll do well in some filtered light in my vivariums. This one was just kind of a one-off. I was like, you know what? Why not get it and give it a shot? This is a butterwort plant. I already have a couple of these, but I figured, you know what? I'm going to get some smaller ones so I can put them in my vivariums. This one doesn't have a species, so I guess I'll have to wait for it to flower and see if anybody can identify it off that. And the last two orchids I got from TSG Tenshin Gardens, and the guy was super, super nice to me. I asked him a couple questions about which ones would do well in vivariums, and he recommended these two. They were originally $20 each, but he gave me two for the price of one. I just paid $20, and he gave me both plants. So, super nice of him to do that. This one specifically is a dendrobium hymenanthum. There was one that was flowering, and honestly, I didn't see it until I already paid. But I'm not too upset because I would rather see this one grow, and this one was the healthiest looking of the bunch that he had. And last but not least is a Aurelia retrocala. It's a pyloric form, so there's 3 rosettes on a flower, and this is a beautiful plant. The flower, at least, is really, really cool. The plant itself looks kind of, well, for lack of a better term, dinky, but I'm hoping it will do well in the vivariums and grow for me. Now, with that being said, I actually have to go out for dinner, so I will be placing these in the tank. Pretty much they're all, or most of them, are going to go into this just empty vivarium that I have and see how they do for a little while until I can start getting the new ones built. And once the new ones are built, then I'll add them to there. But for right now, this is their home. So as I mentioned in the very beginning of this vlog, I want to talk to you guys a bit about how to save money on orchids specifically, but this kind of goes with any local show that you're going to pick up, whether it's orchids, vivarium plants, reptiles, whatever. I want to share a couple tips for you to save a little bit of money, as especially with the orchids, they can get super, super expensive really quickly. So I want to share some tips for you guys. So tip number 1, and probably the most important thing in life in general, is making connections with the people that you're dealing with. These connections can be established over several shows, over Facebook before the show, whatever it has to be, but you just want to make the proper connections to walk up to somebody, shake their hand, and be, hey, how's it going? You know, I've got this going on, that going on. Just make connections. That's kind of the fundamental process in life, is making friends, family, connections. That's saying it's who you know, not what you know, that kind of deal. And it's making those connections that will set up potential discounts, I suppose, in the future. This is not necessarily as much related to discounts as it is just knowing the person and getting to know, like, maybe they'll send you an email list first, or they'll let you know when orders are coming in. Making those connections can be useful for potential business and your benefit in the future. The second point that I want to mention is bartering. Bartering especially applies at orchid shows and different expos like that, because a lot of the times the seller is not dead set at a price unless he really likes an animal or an orchid or really understands the value of it. Chances are there's some lean room. Even if you save $5, that's, I mean, $5 that you can go spend on whatever you want to spend $5 on. I know in my case, those 2 smaller orchids from the TSG Orchids, I think it was, they basically just said, here's 2 for 1. They were $20 each, and he gave me a discount because I was like, hey, is there Is there anything you can do? It was coming to the end of the orchid show, and he gave me a deal on them, so it never hurts to ask. The worst they can say is no, like it's full price, sorry. And especially when it comes to orchids, like some of those miniatures are like 30, 40 bucks in Canada at least, and it can hurt a little bit inside when you don't get a discount. The last tip that I have for you guys is pretty basic. There's not a hell of a lot that goes into it, but it's just pre-ordering. I know specifically if you're in Canada or the States, and I think they do all across the world, Germany, all that stuff. Equigenera, they're from Ecuador, and they are one of the best companies. I've done a couple unboxings from them on the channel before, so I'll link them up there. But they're super good for ordering online or ordering through their price list, and then they will import the plants, and if it's in your city, they'll bring your plants to the orchid show, they'll set it up and have it waiting aside for you. You can either pay first or pay at the show. If you are not in the local area, and like say for me, they're in Montreal or something, which is all the way across the country, I can actually order plants from them and they will ship them from Montreal to Calgary, Alberta, where I'm located. That's super beneficial because you save so much money. Most of the plants on their email list are pretty much what they pay for them, and they are in US, so you'll be paying, yeah, like $15 to $8 for a $30 plant when it's at the show versus when it's on their price list. So it's definitely worth checking it out and ordering what you want before the show starts rather than waiting and hoping that they bring it to the show for you. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up the video here, you guys. I really hope you enjoyed the orchid show and a little bit of a vlog, I suppose, if you want to call it that. Some tips on saving money on orchids and other various expo related products in the future. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click a like down below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, leave them in the comment section. I reply to pretty much everything. If you have any suggestions for Jam Pack July, make sure you leave it in the comment section, because if I make your video, I will mention your name in it. If you want to see more reptile, frog, plant, and fish related videos in the future, make sure you click that subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. In Jam Pack July, we'll have a lot of stuff coming, and I cannot wait. So stay tuned if you're interested, and we'll catch you in the next video. Later.